Hi again, I'm Wallaber, the developer of the JellyCar series of games, and this is a devlog about the level editor update to my new modern sequel called JellyCar Worlds, which is now available on Nintendo Switch, Steam, and Apple Arcade. Maybe more platforms in the future, but those are the ones that's on right now. And yeah, so this is a devlog to talk about the level editor update. Since the game came out last December, I've done now 3 major updates to the game. Let's do a quick recap. The first update was the Frost Mountain update, which added World 7 into the game, featuring the grappling hook ability. And it also added a custom music playlist, where you can turn on your own playlist and decide which songs you want to hear and how frequently. Following that was the World 8 update, which added the turbo car ability and of course a whole new world, new levels and challenges. And that update also added the level rush mode and the skull rush, the most difficult challenge in the game, to complete all the skull levels back to back in order. Which brings us to the new update, which is the level editor. So this is obviously a pretty big feature to add to the game. It's a lot of work to create a tool where you can edit levels relatively easily, but also with lots of flexibility. And so I'll show you kind of where I landed for this first version of the level editor right now. Okay, so here we are in the level editor, and as you can see, I can sort of scroll around and zoom, and I already have some items in the scene here. The start position of the car, the secret exit, and of course the stop sign or the main exit for each level. And then across the top here, you can see some different buttons that you use to make your level. The first one, of course, is this plus button, which brings up the panel to add a new object into the scene. There are custom objects, which I'll talk about in a second, pre-made objects, which are exactly what they sound like. They already have a shape, and some of them already have some behaviors. And then, of course, we have all the ability pickups, so you can use all the different car abilities in your levels, and paths and guidance arrows. Okay, so for example, we could bring in here a spinning wheel, and it comes in like this, and you can see I have some controls like I can scale, rotate, I can even stretch and move around. And then all objects, once they are in the scene, you have settings for them. So you have some basic settings like the color, so maybe we can make this a green wheel. Sorting layer is where in the front and behind it is compared to the other objects in the scene. And this object rotates, so here's all the settings for rotation, like how fast should it rotate, which direction should it rotate, how long should it take to speed up to get to the full rotation speed, stuff like that. So you can see we could place this right here. And then if I hit the play button, we can instantly test our level and see that that object is rotating. And also we see now we have a little ghost that shows us the trail that our car took here. So we can kind of be like, oh, okay, you get pushed by this thing and you go right to here. So, you know, let's duplicate this and add another one. And if we put it right about here, you'll bounce off of it. Let's see. There we go. Then we can go back to the level editor, and now we see an updated path. You got, of course, things like multi-select, so you can move multiple objects at once or rotate them all as a unit. You can turn snapping to the grid off and place things really wherever you want, or you can turn that on and then everything kind of snaps to nice even increments. You already saw that you can change the color of the objects. You can select from the palettes that are used in the different worlds of the game, or of course you can just select your own custom color. I already did it once, but you can duplicate objects. You can of course select more than one object and then duplicate the whole group as well. So now we have lots of wheels in our little level here. And likewise, you can select and delete objects as well. You also have undo and redo. So if I move objects around and delete objects and duplicate objects and change their color and then move them around and stuff, you can just back up through all of that or redo through all of that as well. Then you have a big thing here, which is settings. So this button here, when nothing is selected, becomes the settings for the level. This is where you can set the name of the level. You can set the author name. You can choose which background you want to use. All the ones from all the different worlds are in there, as well as a few special ones like Math World, which is one of my favorites. Wow. And you have some other settings here, like how big is the out of bounds area, stuff like that. And then whenever you select an object, you of course get settings for that object. So just with this alone, you can do quite a bit. You can place all these different pre-made objects. You, of course, can add in power-ups. So, for example, we could add a balloon here. Wow. And now we've got a balloon power-up in the level. So that's all really easy to set up. And you can even do things like paths. So if we add a path into the scene, you'll see that basically a path is a start point and then the path itself. Anytime you have a point selected, you can move it around. You can multi-select and move multiple points. And then you get these little plus buttons, which allow you to add points to the path. So if you want to make the shape different, you can do that. So for example, we could maybe go around a little path here like this, like this. Maybe it'll keep going around. We'll close it so that it goes in a loop. So now we have this path we made here. And then if we go to the settings for the path, we get lots of options. We can control how long the path should take to do a cycle of movement. And everywhere you have these little sliders, you can also click here and just type in a number. So maybe 12 seconds or something like that. You can add pauses, you can add easing, all sorts of stuff. And the big thing, of course, is you can attach objects to the path. So if we select this blue circle here, now it's going to be attached to this path. And so it's going to move around on that path that we made. So you can do quite a bit with that. You can add objects that already exist. These are buttons and switches and falling objects and rotating objects and gears and wheels and things. You got all the pickups and stuff. But there's also these things called custom objects. So what's different about a custom object is when you bring it in, it works just like a normal object. You can rotate it, you can scale it and stuff like that. But you can also get this button, which is the shape edit button. You may have noticed that the path has a similar button. This is the button you use to edit the path and change its shape, or kind of, you know, how the path looks. And for custom objects, you get the same option, but now you can actually change the shape of the object. So we could make like a little cloud shape or something. Let's maybe make this white, and then we could have the car start by falling onto the cloud. There we go. But it doesn't really act like a cloud right now. It's very rigid. So once you have a custom object, you get some additional options. For example, squishiness setting. I love that I worked on a game where I get to have a squishiness setting. So right now it's marked as cement, which basically means it will never move. It's completely rigid. But if I switch it to metal, and then we have a look, we'll see that now it's got a little bit of bounce to it. Not a ton, but a little bit of bounce. If we go back to this object and we set it to plastic, or the most extreme setting, jelly, now we got something that feels a little more like a cloud. In fact, let's change the background in our level to be sky. Let's do this one. There we go. Much more cloud-like. So maybe we could have a little beginning section here to our level where you have to bounce across some clouds. Something like that. There we go. Now we could change the starting position. We could start way up here or something. Let's give this a try. Boing. Boing. Wow. Boing. Woo. Boing. Boing. Nice. So custom objects are pretty powerful because you can set the shape yourself. You also get a whole bunch of other options for custom objects. So for example, if we bring this up, you can change the collision material, you can make them invisible, but you can also add a lot of behaviors. So for example, we could turn on the button behavior, and now this whole object will act like a button. When the car is touching it, it will activate, and when the car is not touching it, it will deactivate. And you can set some different values here for how it should behave. And then there's this concept of signals. So when the button activates, it will send out a signal on this channel here. And then you can have other objects react to that. So for example, we could have another cloud here like this. It's kind of blocking the way. And we'll have it move out of the way Or maybe we'll have it become possible to pass through. So we could go to this object and we could add phasing. Phasing means switching from solid to passable. And so we could say this one receives a signal and it's on this channel here and it should start solid. So when we test it, you can see that our second cloud here is set up like a button now. And when I'm touching this cloud, the other one becomes passable. See, when I'm not touching it, it fades in, phases out. And so you could touch this cloud and then jump across. And then that cloud will pop back in. So this will almost work like a one-way gate where you can't go back now. Also, you can see here now I'm using the free cam, or I should say using a couple debug features. So whenever you're testing a level, you get some new options you can see. So one is pick up the car. So you can pick up the car and move it around and then drop it down again. This is great for testing when you want to just fly over to a certain area of your level. You can also press a button and switch to the free cam, and now you can just move around and look around at your level without actually having to play it, which is pretty useful as well. And then finally, if your level has signals in it, so you can see here, we have this set up so when you touch this, it will toggle this other little cloud here. But I've also got a little on-screen button here that you can click to say just manually turn on that signal to check what happens. Okay, if the signal's on, what happens? If the signal's off, what happens? Okay. So those are pretty useful utilities that are available when you're testing a level, which happens when you press the little play button and you're here in the level editor. Okay, so of course, don't forget to put your secret exit somewhere interesting and kind of finish up your level. And then don't forget to give it a name. Amazing demo clouds made by Wallaber. And then save your level. And one finishing touch you should always do with the level is you should capture a thumbnail for it. And that's what this little button here is for. So when you set that up, you can then frame the view however you want. So maybe we'll just have a cloud as our thumbnail. So we'll kind of put it in the center and it's going to capture that and say, okay, there's your thumbnail for the level. So now we save that. If we go back to the custom level screen, we'll see that we have our level here, amazing demo clouds. And now we can play it for real. Boop. And it won't have any of the debug tools, and it will remember things like your best time and your best, it will remember ghosts for your best times and stuff like that. Okay, so if I get this, there we go. Then if we play it again, we'll see our best time ghost there. So the level editor has turned out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this as sort of the first version for the level editor, which me saying that means, yes, I'm going to keep working on the level editor and I'm going to add some new features and make some improvements to it in the next update to the game. So look forward to that. You can do more than I've even shown here. For example, you can set up things like custom cameras. So if I set this object up as a custom camera region, I can turn on different types of cameras. I could change the main camera for the game. So for example, let's just say you wanted to zoom out. So you could set up a region like this. Let's go like this and say, okay, anytime you're near these clouds right here, like this, and you can also make this any shape you want. Okay, so this is actually just a detector object. So I'm going to change it to be behind everything so we can see it. And I'll just change it to a gray. So anytime you're in this region, the camera will actually switch to be, I don't know, maybe super zoomed in like this. So now you'll see when we start the level, normal camera, and now we have a zoomed in camera anytime we're inside this gray region that I've set up. So now we have like super zoomed in camera, but if I leave the region, we go back to the normal game camera. And you may not want a region like this to be visible, and so that's one of the main reasons that we have the make invisible option. You can also do other cameras. We could do a static camera, and a static camera allows you to actually explicitly say where should the camera be. So for example, we could make a big camera like this where you can see the whole area. And now whenever you're near these clouds, we have a static camera. It's not panning with the car. It's just sitting here, and it's going to stay like this until we leave the region. and then it'll transition to the normal game camera. So you can make camera zones. We could also do other things though. For example, like we could change this and say, no, never mind. Don't make it a camera. Make it a gravity zone. And we could have custom gravity. So we could have gravity that's pointing maybe like to the left, like wind. And maybe we could say, okay, this is actually gonna be like a wind area. So don't cancel the world gravity. Keep the world gravity, but also add this wind gravity. And we'll make it 0.7. And so now when we come in here, you'll see that I'm being pushed to the left. And this could be even more clear if we set this object to not be invisible anymore. Maybe we'll make it a different color too. Like we'll make it like a reddish color. And so now you'll see that it's a gravity zone and it's showing you the direction that it's pushing you. And so now, man, I really gotta fight to go to the right because the wind is way too strong. So you can do gravity zones, you can do custom cameras, you can make objects that rotate, you can make objects, just a detector. So if I set this to be a detector, now this object will send a signal anytime the car is inside. So we could use that same signal system to animate an object or do any other behaviors that can react to signals in the game. I've been demonstrating this on a PC using a mouse, but of course, one of the challenges with designing this was not only trying to figure out the right balance between flexibility and power and ease of use, but also making sure that it was possible to use it and control it with all the different input systems that the game has to support. So of course, you've got mouse as one way, and of course you can use a touchscreen on like the Nintendo Switch or on iOS, and that works really great, of course, because you have multi-touch. You can pan and zoom really great, and you can select and move objects around and things. But also if you're on a platform like Nintendo Switch docked on a TV or on Apple TV, for example, where a controller is your input device, whenever you start using a controller, you get this little cursor that pops up, and now you can use the cursor in the same way you can use a mouse for the main ways that you interact with the level editor, which is selecting and moving and manipulating objects. And you can use the triggers to zoom in and out, for example. But you don't always have to use a cursor. So for example, when you hit the plus button, now you just have a standard highlight up, down, left, right navigation. It's a lot faster for selecting things. Same thing if you go to the settings for an object. Like now you just have a sort of standard, you know, vertical and horizontal interaction. So this makes it pretty easy to manipulate and use the editor with just a controller as well. Okay, so that was a quick, well, maybe not that quick, but that was a tour of the level editor. I've already been amazed at the creativity of the JellyCar Worlds community. I have a few levels here from my Discord playtesters, so I can show you some quick examples of levels that people have made. Players have made super difficult skull-style levels. Players have made levels with beautiful themes like this, where you're on musical note being chased by a giant ink blot. Elaborate recreations of classic video game levels like this incredibly detailed recreation of Mario 1-1, which even includes going down the pipes. Really detailed and beautiful environmental levels. Look at this forest we're driving through here. We're about to discover a hidden temple. Obstacle course levels like this one that are really all about platforming and using the different car abilities. Pure platforming challenges like this one, it's all about just using the grow ability. We've even started doing some level design challenge events on my Discord, so every couple weeks we'll come up with a theme, and then players can make custom levels based on that theme, and then the community votes on their favorites. We recently did a theme of Gold Rush, and this was one of the winning levels where you go into a gold mine. It actually ends up with a mine cart ride, and the creativity of the community is really amazing. So thank you so much to all the Discord players who have been helping me playtest the level editor, finding tons and tons of bugs along the way, and coming up with such amazing creations. All right, that basically wraps it up for this update. So what's coming next is more work on the level editor. The next big update to JellyCar Worlds will be level editor version 2. It's going to feature some of the things I couldn't get into version 1, like conveyor belts, tripwires, checkpoints, and possibly I'm going to be adding in some classic old JellyCar 1 levels into the game. I'm working on some code right now to be able to import old classic levels and bring them back to life in JellyCar Worlds. So hopefully that's what will be in the next update. But until then, feel free to stop by my Discord or check out my weekly dev streams on twitch.tv/Wallaber, where I'm working on the game actively every week. And thanks for coming by. Of course, if you want to just watch the devlogs that come out every time there's a new update, then don't forget to like and subscribe here on YouTube, and I'll see you in the next one.